Hey everyone, welcome back to Coding Everyday. So this tutorial is on components and props in React. So in the last tutorial we have seen environment setup. I know it's been a long time that I have put the video on environment setup, but whenever I think to record the sessions or videos, something else comes up and I was not able to do it. Okay, but let's not waste any time and let's get started. So in React, as we have discussed in this slide, right, in some slide we have discussed like what is a React. Then we had that React is a component based system. Okay, where is that? Okay, so we had seen that the main feature of React is component based approach. But what is a component here in React? Okay, so components are nothing, these are the basic UI elements. Okay, it can be a JavaScript function or classes. Okay, and component helps us build reusable and independent UI pieces. Okay, so let's take a basic example. Okay, so I have opened this React documentation here. Okay, so if you go through the documentation, it clearly mentions that components let you split the UI into independent reusable pieces. Okay, so it's like each component is different from other component. Okay, and wherever you need that component, you can call that component. Okay, so let's go to website. Let's go to Amazon. Okay, simple website. So if you go into Amazon, you see we have these images here, the text are all same. Okay, then these item names are also same, this menu are also same. So these are different components. Like this image is a single component. Okay, this text is a single component, this text is a single component, right? So these are all the separate pieces of code. These are in isolation, like they are different from each other. Okay, and we bring together different components and we create a UI. Okay, it's like building a house, or if you know the Lego pieces. So each component is a piece of Lego that we bring together. Like we in another example, it's a, let's say, house you are building, right? So in house you have the bricks, you have the rods, you have cement, you bring all the things together and you build a house. Okay, so that in the same way we have different component. Each component has its own functionality that we as a user can define. Okay, and it's independent of other components. It's your wish. Okay, ideally it's independent of other components, but you write the function like how it should react. Okay, so it's a brief introduction about the components. So alright, so if we go deep into the document, you will see that in React we have two types of components. Okay, we have the function components and we have class based components. So if you want to write a function components, here is how you write. Like a function will come. Okay, there is a prop that we receive and we return some value. Okay, in same way we have class based component. This is the way, like it extends from react.component and it renders this value. But currently from when React 16.8 was launched, after that the functional components become more popular. So the reason was that before React 16.8, functional components were not allowed to have any state of their own. Okay, and we will discuss about the state right now. Okay, but after React 16.8, functional components started getting their own state and React introduced hooks. Okay, so after that functional components are more popular than class based components, and it's a new way of writing React, right? So whatever new code you will be writing mostly in functional components, and that is why in the scope of this tutorial we will be using mostly functional components. We will use the class based component only for a demo of life cycles, methods and all. Okay, so yeah, so we will see these things in action. But now sorry about that. So when we are saying about the components, okay, so we discussed that it's a reusable UI piece, right? It's a function or it's a class. Now every component can have a state of itself. Okay, so what is a state? State is something like the component will stores its own value. It will remember its own identity or some value given to it, right? So it will remember that one. Okay, so state in a component, so the state in a component is an object that stores some values about the components itself. It's like it remembers its some values about the component, right? Let's say if doc, tutorial, blog, community are nav components, then there can be state of docs, like it can have some links when we click on this, what should happen and all, but that comes under action. So to tell you in simple words, we will go through the definition. Okay, so where is the definition here? There is no definition, or it might be you can read the documentation, but in simple terms, the state is an object that stores some information related to the component. Okay, and you can change the state, whereas the React components also have something called as props. Okay, now the props are being passed by a different component or a parent of that component. So there is a difference between state and props. So props are passed by different components and the states are defined within the component itself, right? So we can see that in action later on while we are working on our projects. So like the points mentioned here, props are the inputs taken by React components. Props are read only. You can change the state, but you cannot change the props. Okay, now the React component is re-render whenever the props or state gets changed, right? So this is the difference. I can write it down as props and state are changed, right? So that is why we say React, right? Because it reacts to different changes and the changes are props and state. So whenever you have a component like an image or a text or something, if the props or the state is changed, that then it will re-render, else it will not re-render. Okay, so let's see component in action, right? So here we have view, we have text, we have status bar. Okay, so let's create a component. So I'll just create a folder here, src, okay, source folder. Inside this folder I'll create a component folder. Component, I hope the spelling is correct. Okay, now inside this component I'll create a button. Okay, so we discussed about JSX, right? So I'll write button.jsx. So now I will have to import so this, okay, import, what I need to import, I need to import a view and button from React Native. Right, now I'll write a functional component. Okay, so you can write function button, but since the button is already there, I'll write my button. Okay, so in React, whenever you are declaring a component, remember that the name of the component should start with a capital letter, right? So this is a function that we have. Okay, and now we will return a value. We can return, let's say, a view, or we can directly return a button as well. Like this button is a component given by React Native. Okay, that we will also discuss later on, but for now we'll just write down button, and the button will have a title. Title will be I am a button. Okay, so this is the title. Now we need to export this component as we need to use it in different places, right? So I'll write export default my button. Okay, so this is a simple component. Now I'll import this, import my button from this. Okay, now we just need to write my button here. Now Control S, it should have been refreshed. Yes, you see I am a button is provided here. Now let's see the power of component, right? So we know that this is a component, okay, but now like I said, a component has props, right? So we have props here. Okay, we'll console dot log props. Okay, so currently we will not use props here, right? So props is any parameter that you pass into a component. Okay, maybe it may be a class-based component, or it may be a functional component. It's a parameter that you pass into a component. So I want that I need to use this button wherever I want. Okay, but button name cannot be I am a button, right? It can be login, it can be log out, it can be buy, it can be add to cart, color can be different. So based on my usage, where I am placing, I need to customize this. So one way that I can customize is I can pass a prop to it. Okay, since it's a home page, I can write that here the title should be subscribe. Okay, it's a YouTube channel, so subscribe to my channel, subscribe. Okay, now we'll save it. The UI is getting refreshed. We'll see in a debugger, right click, inspect, go to console. You see here it's an object, okay, and inside that object we have a title subscribe, right? It's a subscribe. And now if I want to use this, I can make use of destructuring here as well, and directly I can write it as title. This will also work. Okay, so now you just need to provide this title as title. Okay, now just save it. It should see the this text change to subscribe, right? So based on the props. So let's say I need to display a logout button as well, or login button. So I can copy this button only, I can paste it. Instead of subscribe, let's say I'll write like. We have this, we got the like button here as well, like you see here. Okay, to differentiate it, let's add a text here. Okay, like button, and similarly we will have Control C, share button, it's a share. See, so these are the components, and we are passing props into component. Okay, now let's come to state. Let's say we will go onto the state later on, but just to give you an idea, okay, what is state? So we have something as use state. So these are the hooks in React. So we will go into detail later on, but for now we have, let's say, const so what do we add? Count. Let's say add count, set count is equal to use state 0. Okay, so this is the hook that provides us a state and a way to set this state. Okay, it has different rule that hook should be on the top, right, and this is a default value. So if whenever we were discussing about use state, we will discuss in detail, but for now this is how you declare state in a functional component. Now let's say along with title, okay, I'll I'll provide this in a string literal, or let's add a plus here, okay, and I'll give a space. I can use string literals as well, but just for reference, okay. So now this button component that React Native gives us, it also have a on press functionality as well. On press, okay. So on press, I need to pass a callback function here, and I'll write set count as count plus 1, and I'll save this. So let's wait, see. Now this is one more thing about the component. So like whenever you are using component, right, so you have different button, like this kind of button, and you want to do some change in that button. Let's say you have Amazon has a yellow button and he wants to change it to blue. You don't need to go into each and every button to do it individually. You can just change your component and the changes are reflected. Okay, so now as I was saying, the state are an object that stores some value related to the component itself. Okay, so now this is the state of the component. For subscribe it's different, for like it's different, for share is different. Okay, so I want that on press the count should increase. So let's say I'll click on subscribe. You see the count is only increased for subscribe. Okay, so you don't press the subscribe button multiple times, you just need to press it only one, and you do it right now, right? Similarly, if you press for like, the state increases, okay, the value increases. For share, the value increases. So this is the state, like it stores the information about components. So now whenever we will be using state, right, so we have different functions to, like we will have different requirement for which we will need state, that we will see later on when we are creating or working on some projects, okay, or using some demo as well. We will be seeing like states are very much required. So now this was a functional component, right? Now we can also have a what do we say, a class based component. So forgive me for my mistakes. Okay, I'll write React. Okay, so we write class my button extends React dot component. Okay, and we have this. Then we have the render function, and inside render we have a return. What do we want to return? We'll return this only. Let's remove this for now. Okay, I'll remove this. I'll write btn, okay, only button. So save it. So this is a button as well. Okay, this is a class place button, but the difference you see, like in a function component, you can write it as an arrow function, or you can write it as a normal function, as in this document you can see here, right? This is also a way to write a function component. And so class based component also have props, but if you console log prop here, right, let's say console dot log props, but here you can do it. This is a wrong way. Let's say within return I do it. Okay, do we have anything in our console? Let's see. See, it says props is not defined. So whenever you are defining a class based component, since it's a class, and if you know about the Java and Python, you have done some class oops concept, or if you know about oops concept, then this my button is a child of this. It is inheriting some values from react.component. Okay, so that is why we need to have a constructor. Okay, this constructor will have a value super. Why super? You know that by calling super we call the constructor of the parent, right? So here if you see, where is the class based component? Components and props in React. I need to see a class based component which has some props. Where is it? See, the React documents only favors this functional based component, so class based components are a thing of past. But then we need to pass the props to the parent. Okay, so now save it. Now go to our console. Still props is not defined. Okay, so I did a mistake here, right? The props is not defined because in class we need to call it by this dot props. Okay, so the prop belongs to this class, so we need to call it by this way. So now you see we have different props for this one. Okay, but still if you don't provide the props here, right, so we see that this also have a prop, but the state in class is also a bit different. Okay, so we have is this dot state. Okay, so here state is an object. Okay, state it's an object. I will have a count will be 0. So this is a state in class based component. So if I want to access it, so for props I can have this dot props dot title, or else I can do it like this as well. Const title is equal to this dot props. Okay, I'll copy this one to here, a title, but we can't access the props this way, so we need to find this dot state dot, what do we have, count. Okay, and whenever we call the function we need to pass it this dot set state, and we'll pass count is count plus 1. Even I'm not that good with class based component. Save this. Okay, so we have this one. Count is not defined. Okay, so this is not defined, so this dot state dot count plus 1. Now again, if you click on this, it's incrementing this value. Okay, so you need to use this set state function. Okay, so this is the set state in class based component, and whenever you are using hook, then the second value of this array is a set state value. So if you write it like this way, like this dot count, this dot state dot count equals to, what we say, plus equals to 1. Okay, so if you write it this way, right, it will not get re-rendered. So that is why it is important to use this dot set state. Okay, so whenever we are updating the state, we need to use set state. So this is some of the information related to the class and functional based component. So mostly we will be using functional based component, but since we need to discuss about the life cycle of React based components, therefore we will be starting with class based component only for discussing about the life cycle methods, and then we have hooks and all for that we will see function based component, but this course will be mostly focusing on the functional based components, and will not be using the class based components. And nowadays most of the people are not using it, or most of the projects are not using it. It's the older projects that have class based component. Now there is an interesting question that people ask: whenever you are writing a code in React, what will you choose? Will you choose a class based component or function based component? So if you want to answer that, you can say that before 16.8, React version 16.8, functional component were only used when we didn't have a state to share. Like the functional component do not require a state, so we had the stateless component. But after 16.8, since both the class and function have state, both have life cycles method on their own, and due to the React Fiber architecture and the introduction of hooks, it is more preferable to use the functional components as well as. But here is a catch: if your project is already using class based component, you can use class based component. You can also use function based component, there is no problem. But to maintain, to maintain the structure, to maintain different things of the project, to make it easy, you might have to use class based component if the classes are already being used. Else, if it's a new project or you are free to use, you can choose any depending upon you. But functions are the new way of writing React. Okay, so we will discuss about JSX. I need to write, I'll add a thing here as well, but that will be after JSX will be let me add it, life cycle methods. Okay, so we need to discuss this, but we need to discuss it here. After hooks we will discuss. Okay, so knowledge of hook is necessary for knowing the life cycle method. All right, so that's it for the components in React. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do like it and share it, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, thank you, bye bye, and keep coding every day.